Hey everybody, Quantum here, and in this video I wanted to give an update for Amethyst Steel in the Azeroth Sea metagame. We had the conclusion of the European Championships on the past weekend, and we have seen some developments with this ink pairing. If you've watched my channel before, you know that we've discussed there are basically 3 to 4 different ways that you can play this ink pairing, and all have gotten significantly better with the addition of the Genie, which is very fast becoming, I guess you could say, the best card out of Azeroth Sea, because I keep saying it over and over again. It does seem like we're in a Genie meta. And one of the unique things that Amethyst Steel has going for it is it plays the Amethyst card, so it has counterplay to Genie itself, things like the Crab, boosting up your own Genie, taking it out, or an Elsa, Bell being able to move the damage on the double challenge, right? The Genie plus the Elsa challenge into the opposing Genie, etc. But you also have some good counterplay with some of the steel cards, things like Fire the Cannons and a Smash even, or Fire the Cannons to finish off the Genie in combination with taking it or putting some damage into it with your own Genie, with your Elsa, moving the damage with Bell, finishing it off with Smash, that kind of thing. So you get some additional synergies if you really want to hone in on taking out opposing Genies against like Ruby Amethyst, Emerald Amethyst, Amethyst Steel Mirrors, even Sapphire Amethyst. Like every ink pairing is working with Amethyst right now, it seems. The only one that isn't is Amber Amethyst, I guess, at the moment. But you never know. We'll see. Regardless, though, this deck is very, very powerful, and I think this is going to be the most preferred way to play it. There are variations and tech cards that you can add in. Like there could be space for Tinkerbell, for like this new 6-cost Hades. We've seen that have success at the European Championship. But the reason that this deck is very powerful and a great choice for you to be your meta competitive deck, and a lot of people are gravitating towards this, is it beats a lot of the tempo oriented decks like Emerald, Amethyst, but also it's a very easy to play, like on the curve deck. I shouldn't say easy to play, but it's not a deck where you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have my 1-drop, I don't have my 2-drop, etc. You play so many accessible cards here. 12 1-drops plus Fire the Cannon, so 15 1-drops. Whether you're on the draw or on the play, you should have a good option to drop or counter your opponent with, like Fire the Cannons or Merfolk on 1. Not a bad option if you don't have a character. On 2, you play, I don't even know how many this is, 8 plus 6, 14. So 12 1-drops plus the 3 cannons is 15, and then 14 2-drops, all of which are extremely good. Obviously, you don't want to play one of the 3 docks on 2, pretty obvious. So technically you only have like 11 2-drops. But if you have like double dock in hand and you have no other 2-drop, like just dropping dock as a card that you can bounce back with Fox later or Snake later, it's not a bad option either. So you'll be able to play on curve quite nicely. You'll be able to counterplay against your opponent nicely, which is why I'm kind of calling this deck counterplay. You have the removal options to hopefully swing back a significant advantage when you need to. You have some form of tech in Pete, being able to protect a board that you've developed from something like a Be Prepared into Ruby Sapphire, Ruby Amethyst, that kind of thing. This deck does suffer a little bit into the Ruby decks, but to counterplay that, you play something like a Location, the Library, or the Queen's Castle on 3 or 4. And then, you have, again, really solid 3-drops. Probably Fox if you need board control, or Crab, beefing up any of your very likely to played 1 or 2-drops. You have the right Rose just as additional pressure. A 3-cost 3/3 body is pretty significant. So you have Crab, White Rose, and you have Mim as an overstated body at 4/3, and you have Pete as a 3-cost 3/3. Like all your 3-drops are huge technically. Just really, really big bodies that come in and have significant, again, counterplay to your opponent. Fox, take out a threat. Crab, boost up something to take out a threat. Trade up, especially if you get it on a Diablo. Insane. White Rose, gain a lore. Put a body on board. Pete, again, kind of like Doc, a utility card that you want to save for the right moment. But if you have it and you just need to play it, right? Because into like Emerald Amethyst, we know Pete doesn't really do anything. There's no actions that you want to stop from being played, really. But if it's your only 3-drop, just drop it as a 3-cost 3/3. A big body, and all of these things, Cloud Kicker do not out them, for example. And then in the 4-drop slot, this is where you start to aggressively push the game. You have your Genies and you have your Goats, of course. Playing 8 of the Mim cards, still showing how powerful this pairing continues to be. You have cycles, and you're going to gain lore. You can cycle through your Bells, your Elsas, No Merlins because you're playing the dock instead. I do think this is a better option in just limited testing. The Merlins are a little clunky, being the 4 cost, since you want to play very low to the ground. The dock is risky, don't get me wrong. You are playing a total of 13 on Inkables, but it's very easy to dump out your hand since you top off at like, yeah, 5 cost, and your biggest uninkable is Genie, and you're not even playing Zeus. So yeah, your biggest uninkable is Genie, and you're never really going to want to discard a Genie. You're always going to want to play it pretty much. So this deck, really, really strong results from not just me, but other top players. It's constantly a deck that's being played in the highest MMR online, for example, and people are just clapping up, just like any deck. A deck like this, kind of like Amber Steel Song, maybe just a little bit more consistent. I know that sounds really weird than Amber Steel Song. I think Amber Steel Song has a higher ceiling in terms of its combo potential because ever since set 1, Amber Steel Song, if you get that certain line of play, like no deck is really beating that, right? Like, turn 1, let's say like a shift target like Robin Hood, turn 2, like Ursula Singer, turn 3 shift Robin Hood, sing Whole New World. Like you have a developed board, maybe you sing another song with the Ursula that you played on 2 to out the opponent's threat. You put them on negative board advantage. You have 3 characters on board still. You sing a Whole New World. You have fresh 7. They have a fresh 7. Nothing's beating that. Still to this day, which is why I keep saying Whole New World is kind of like a broken card. But I digress. Amethyst Steel is one of those decks that I think can play into the meta, into every deck, even into the Ruby decks, and still do well, despite not having explosive combo potential like that. You are like almost like a tempo-oriented deck that counters other tempos, right? And I mean, Emerald Amethyst can do that to a certain degree, right? Because they also play, the same Amethyst packages that you do. But instead of the Emerald cards that are more aggressive in Lorcana and have things like Tamago now, which is like literally one of the strongest cards out of the set as well, along with Genie, you have the removal options, you have the aggro checks, and then, like I said, into the Ruby decks where you might want some counterplay to shore up your bad matchups, you just go aggressive, right? I mean, you'll have to play out the Calhoun anyway, since there's no other way to ink it, and for that you could cut this to 2, but I do think this card is just so powerful into the other Amethyst decks as well that it's just something that you want to play. Sapphire decks like Sapphire Steel, Sapphire Ruby, they can give you a little bit of trouble, but again, it's just like you can play into their board a little bit. You can lock up Be Prepared with Pete and prevent singing a Whole New World, right? Buying yourself an extra turn if they're slow to develop on the Sapphire Steel side, for example. You can just control the board. Like the Hiram is what you mainly want to be concerned about, and for that reason, like you could say maybe I want to play a Zeus, like 2 to 3 Zeus, because you would need Zeus and like a combination of Fire the Cannons and Bell. Hopefully not Zeus and Smash, or sing Zeus and play Smash. That's really bad for you there. But if the Hiram quests and gets another 2 off, and then you can clean it up after that, that should be okay. But overall, I think that this deck is in a very good spot. Plus, Sapphire Steel isn't really that popular. I doubt it will be. It is I think a sleeper deck to a certain degree. But against what's in the meta right now, and Emerald is very powerful, Amber Steel, Ruby Amethyst, and this Ruby Amethyst is probably this deck's toughest matchup. You have the counterplay options, right? Like Smee, the Calhoun counters the Flynn. The Sisu can, or the Madam Mim Fox can rival the Sisu to a certain extent. You can dump your hand very fast, right? Go wide, put a lot of pressure on your opponent, refill with Dock, bounce Dock. We know how powerful that interaction is, and I do like the ratio here of 3 Dock. It is I think better because I really hate drawing multiple Docks, even though I know you can just play them out and just don't trigger the effect, but it just feels like a dead card, right? I'm not playing a vanilla 1/3 for the sake of playing a vanilla 1/3 that quests for 1, right? Like all these cards are absolutely, I don't want to say broken cards, obviously not, but like they're all very powerful cards with effects, and you play them for a reason, right? Draw cards, draw cards, draw cards, bounce over stat, wall up aggro, hand replenishment, very aggressive pressure early on, and overstatted rush, right? Challenge, like everything here has significance, and this is why this ink pairing is good, because you're just basically saying I'm taking the best low to the ground Amethyst and Steel cards, putting them into a deck and throwing them out there. So matchup spread wise, I do think that this deck is going to be very prevalent in the meta. Amethyst Steel was a deck that was played last format but not to great success. This format, I think you are seeing that change. Obviously, with the the two top eights in the EU Championship, it'll be interesting to see where it lands in NA Championships. But I do think at your locals, like this is definitely a deck you'd have to look out for and be ready to play against. Because yeah, like if it's again similar to Amber Steel Song, if they just get their game plan rolling, and you're like, oh, I really don't want to challenge into your board because then your Calhoun cleans my stuff up, or you get the right options to slow their board down with Fire the Cannon Smash, or like I said, if you play Zeus, or you're on the clawback tempo where you're on the play and you just lock things down with like Elsa's bells, you aggro them out with the genies. Like the deck can seem like a snowball, right? And almost I don't want to say that kind of unbeatable line of play, like Bucky Emerald Steel with the Diablo shift and everything, or like Amber Steel with the whole new world shift, but the line is very, very strong. So yeah, very accessible, capping out at 5, very low to the ground, still very aggressive, can hold its own into control to a certain extent. Very low number of uninkables in 13. So really accessible deck. If you haven't, I would say, like, even if you don't want to play this deck like as your deck that you want to play, let's say for Dorset Championships, you should still play this deck so that you understand how it works, because I think this deck can teach you a lot, and it probably will be a threat at your locals. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. I just wanted to kind of give you an update here. Yeah, the deck feels good. Again, the struggles for me has been against Ruby decks, but even that, you still have some counterplay into most other things. Like, I've mopped up Amber Steel decks because, sometimes, yeah, they get the nuts and I lose. But in a back and forth matchup, I just find like somehow this deck just outgrinds Amber Steel, right? Like they need a certain combination line of play, and the Smashes take care of the Gastons, takes care of the Aerials, right? What I will say before I wrap up is there was a version that I wanted to test, but I haven't got around to it, where maybe I replaced like the Brooms with Happies, and I replaced the libraries with the Dwarven Mine. I just don't like, from what I've been testing, I don't think I'd have the ability to, or have not have the ability, but have the spare ink to use the movement to the mine to ping off the extra damage. Plus, because I'm only playing, like, I'd go up to 4 docks too, so I'd find some room for them. But because I'm only playing 4 or 8 knights with the mine, I don't really want to move anything else to the mine to just ping 1. But the ping 1 could be relevant because I can combine it with Smash to deal a total of 4 damage, which outs Genies and stuff. So, there is some synergy there, but again, the move cost for 2, kind of rough. I think it's only 6 willpower if I recall. But it still does gain you lore, which is great. But the draw off library can be a little bit more relevant. Putting the pressure on your opponent to answer this. I keep saying this every time I make a deck with library. Does the opponent opt to answer the library first, or your questing pressure? It's probably going to be this location, because if they're trying to deal with the Diablos and stuff on the libraries, like, why give you a draw 2, right? This thing will just continue to quest right at the location. They'll opt to take out the location. But again, if you're taking out their threats, right, like, there's only so much damage they can put into the location. So yeah, a pretty well-rounded deck, a lot of different avenues of play to make it successful. I guess you could say also fairly budget friendly compared to a lot of the other decks. We're not playing things like Beast Tragic Heroes or Maui Sharks, these really expensive cards. The most expensive card in here is probably Calhoun. Doc in a close second, right? Oh no, what am I saying? Of course, Genie is, yeah, obviously the most expensive. Genie, excluding Genie, because anything Amethyst is just automatically, I don't want to say walled by Genie, but like, yeah, you're gonna need your Genies. But yeah, this is where like all the expense is. I'm amazed to see that Elsa is still holding up its price here too, being a starter deck card. But yeah, we knew this was going to be good. Again, if you watch any of my like preset reviews, literally said that this card is like a game changer, and I think it has been. I've been saying in previous sets to that, like, we needed a card like this. We need more cards to answer ready threats, right? An opponent shouldn't just be able to say, top deck a 2 questing character, drop it on board in ready state, and be like, yeah, I win the game now if you can't answer this character. We need more cards to force exertion, or we need more ways to interact. Because that's what a good game is, right? It's interaction. So anyways, to prevent me rambling, I'm going to wrap up this video. Hopefully you enjoyed if you made it this far. Let me know what you think about this deck and any of the tech options that you might want to play, the Dwarf package, like Tinkerbells, anything else. Thank you again for watching, though, if you made it this far. Quantum is out.